touching Jesus. First of all, the first thing that hits me when I read this is that, yuck, it's kind of unsanitary to put your fingers into his wounds and your hand into his side. But we're going beyond that. We have a greater message today in the scriptures. This Sunday is called Mercy Sunday, Divine Mercy Sunday, because it shows Jesus not coming back from the grave, not having resurrected with a vengeance, with an attitude. Now you and I know that if our best friends denied us, betrayed us, and said we don't know him, and watched him go to death, and he came back, we'd probably be shaking in our boots. And when we came back, we'd probably say, I thought you were my friends. You know, we have like an attitude of vengeance. Not Jesus. Jesus comes back with divine mercy. The first thing he says is peace to all of you. And he promises peace, not only to those who were there, but he literally promises peace to you and me, those who were not there, but still believe. This is Divine Mercy Sunday, but I'd rather call it Touching Jesus Sunday, because the touch was the focus of the gospel, as we heard. But the readings today also give us an indication how we can come to know Jesus and literally touch Jesus. That first reading from the Acts of the Apostles, it was composed by Luke. He was the author of the Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles. So his work is 2 books, Acts and Jesus' Gospel. And he gives a really beautiful scenario of what the early church was doing. But it didn't happen that way. The community was gathered in one heart, one mind. Nobody had any needs. Everything was sold and put on the feet of the apostles to be distributed. You heard all that. That didn't happen. Luke wrote this gospel, this section of his work, the Acts of the Apostles, years after the early community was established, maybe 60 years after the early community was established. But he's writing it with the idea of giving us instructions. Basically, he could have prefaced it by, listen folks, this is what we're supposed to be doing. We met Jesus, we knew Jesus, we learned about Jesus, we were there at the cross. Luke wasn't there. And what happened when he came back is overwhelming love. He forgave us. We know what he did when he was with us. He cured, he healed, he forgave, he walked on water. We know all that. So now, as Luke is composing the actions of the apostles, the Acts of the Apostles, he's giving us an instruction manual as to how we can live as Christians years after Jesus resurrected and ascended into heaven, and to today. Again, he's directing us to the same people Jesus just directed us to, those who don't see me but believe, in 2024 and the future. And the theme of Jesus touching and being touched is woven in and out of the scriptures. Jesus himself touched people left and right. He touched the lepers, he touched the poor, he touched the blind. You know all the stories, and if you don't, just open up the scriptures. How important touching is in the scriptures. And today, it's reversed. Thomas is touching Jesus. But who's Thomas? He's called the twin because he's a twin. Didymus. You and I are the other half of Thomas. Thomas is the apostle, and you and I are the twins. So we have an instruction booklet today in the Holy Gospels and the Scriptures. An instruction booklet as to how we can live connected to Jesus, who rose from the dead. And this is a great little statue, but that's all it is. What you and I do when we come here is celebrate the risen Jesus. And where else do we celebrate the risen Jesus? Well, Luke sort of hints at it. There were no needs among the community because those who owned anything sold it and put the profits at the feet of the disciples so they could be distributed to the poor. I don't think it's realistic to say, okay, sell everything and bring it all here, put it here, and we'll distribute it, because then you'll be the poor. It's kind of reversed communism. So what's the message? The message is to live as if Jesus is with us. And that's not pretend as if. Live as if Jesus is with us and touching us and asking us to touch him. But he's not here. Where can we touch him? Very clearly. In the poor, in the mission of Jesus. And John, in his beautiful letter, tells us we love God by obeying his commandments, and we love one another by obeying his commandments. And loving is not just like a romantic kiss-kiss. Romantic kiss-kiss is for lovers. We are Christians. We have love. And our love has to be like Jesus' love. Roll up your sleeves kind of love. Where does it get affected in our lives? When we forgive. Within our families? That's enough. No, beyond our families. When we are concerned for the poor, and when we are concerned for justice, we don't want to get into a political debate, but we are surrounded by poor people. And there has to be justice. And we, as members of a community, of a society, have to stand up for justice. Justice, not liberalism and not freedom, no, justice. Giving food to the hungry and drink to the thirsty. We see it on the TV, like especially in the last few days, the community food banks around the country, not only here in the city. There was a big piece on the community food bank in Hillside, New Jersey, where I used to work. And volunteers coming, packing up food, packing up groceries, packing up provisions to give it out to those who come. I mean, think of the humiliation of those who are so hungry that they have to go online to wait for food. It's like a movie. It's like something out of a script. But it's authentic. It happens now, and it happened 2,000 years ago. So when we give food, or donations of food, or attention, we're loving as Jesus did. We're touching each other as Jesus touched. And think of the Eucharist. Talk about touching Jesus. He gives us his body and blood the night before he dies at the Last Supper in a way that you and I can't do. Breaks the bread, the manna of the Last Supper, the Passover meal, gives it to you and me, and says, take it. This is my body. Take it and eat. They were Jews. They knew that the sacrifice in the temple surrounded itself around the sacrifice of the lamb of sacrifice that reconciled the people with God. The lamb was cut, sacrificed, a piece was given back to the people who donated it, a piece was kept for the temple. They literally ate the sacrifice. We do the same. Not a lamb. Our sacrifice is Jesus himself. And that's an opportunity for us to touch him. Now, we all know that. We all come to Eucharist, we receive communion, but we're touching Jesus. We're part of the earliest concept of the church. When he told Thomas, touch, go ahead, touch, put your finger here, put your finger there. You don't want to do that, and I don't want to do that. But we're invited to do that and touch his glorified body, the Eucharist. See, as of the resurrection, Jesus is no longer so high and so wide and so tall in human flesh, in human form. As of the resurrection, he is glorified, able to, like he did tonight, visit the apostles, even though the doors were locked, more than once. He's the glorified body. That's why he told Mary Magdalene, don't touch me, I haven't yet descended to the Father yet. What does that mean? It means that he was not yet in contact with the Father, glorified by the Father, and then comes back, and he tells his Magdalene, go tell the apostles, I'll meet them in Galilee. He didn't walk. He didn't take a boat. He didn't take a carriage. He just appeared. The glorified Jesus could do that. And that's why we're so blessed, I think, that we can meet the glorified Jesus each time we reach out for the Eucharist. We can meet the glorified Jesus each time we love one another. Don't forget, we love one another. We're imitating the commandment. Jesus' commandment is to love one another. When we love one another, we're meeting Jesus. We're touching Jesus. Did the early apostles know that? Not immediately, I'm sure. So what did he do? He breathed on them to inspire them. And he breathed on us at our baptisms, at our confirmations, when we received the Holy Spirit, which opened our eyes to see Jesus where it doesn't look like he is, to touch Jesus where it looks like he's not, and to do his will. And John says it very clearly, by loving one another. This is Mercy Sunday. This is Touching Jesus Sunday. You have the power. We all do. Guess we got to think about it. Do I really want to use that power? I'm using it as I forgive people in my family. I'm using it as I go beyond my home and meet people outside and am kind. A gentleman who is still here, I was talking to Jerry before Mass, and he came up to me and said, he's here every week, okay? I don't want to embarrass him. He says, when I come over to you, you smile, and you just make me feel so warm and happy in the church. Why not? That's the least any one of us could do, smile at one another. Not long ago, maybe a week ago, we were walking on the street. When people look at me, I presume they know me. Not that I'm a superstar, but they've seen me, either here or someplace else. So, what do? I acknowledge them. So you look at me when we're outside, I'll say hello. Whether I really know you or not, I'll say hello. It's just my little effort to touch Jesus in you. We all have the power. The Spirit encourages us to smile. The Spirit encourages us to touch one another. The Spirit encourages us to love one another and touch Jesus.